It was one of those blazing summer afternoons when the highway shimmered like molten glass. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline, and the hum of engines filled the lonely stretch of a roadside gas station. Among the travelers, one man stood out, a towering figure in a black leather vest, tattoos snaking down his arms, and a silver beard that caught the sunlight. His name was Ryder, leader of the Iron-Bound Wolves, a feared yet strangely respected motorcycle club known for helping veterans and those in need. But on that day, he wasn't there for anyone's rescue. He was just stopping for gas, lost in his own thoughts about the life he lived, the mistakes, the battles, the years he couldn't take back. He leaned against his Harley, filling the tank, when a small silver sedan pulled up 2 lanes away. Inside was a woman in her early 30s, her face pale and weary, her eyes darting around nervously as if afraid of being seen. A little boy sat quietly in the back seat, his small face pressed against the window, watching the biker with cautious curiosity. Ryder barely paid attention until he noticed the woman's trembling hands, searching her purse, her lips moving as if whispering a prayer. Something about her made him pause, the kind of sadness that couldn't be hidden behind a polite smile. Just then, as he was about to mount his bike, she rolled down her window and called softly, "Excuse me, sir." Her voice cracked. Ryder turned, her hand extended out of the window, holding a small folded note. "Please, could you give this to someone?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ryder hesitated for a second but took the note. As soon as the paper touched his hand, she looked away quickly, her eyes glistening with tears. Before he could ask anything, she drove off, leaving behind a faint cloud of dust and confusion in his heart. He looked down at the note, uncertain. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. He unfolded it slowly, and the words hit him like a thunderclap. "To whoever finds this, please help my son. I have nothing left. He hasn't eaten properly in 2 days. I'm scared. Please don't call the cops. I just need help before I disappear for good." Ryder froze. For a long moment he couldn't move. The roar of the engines, the chatter of travelers, the sun's heat, everything faded into silence. His chest tightened. He read the note again, and his eyes caught a smaller line scribbled below. "His name is Ben. He's 5. If anything happens to me, please make sure he's safe." He looked down the highway, hoping to spot the silver car, but it was gone. Just gone. Something deep inside him, a buried instinct he thought had died years ago, came alive. Without wasting another second, he swung his leg over his Harley, started the engine, and sped off in the direction she'd gone. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and helping others even when they don't ask out loud, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps spread stories that remind us humanity still exists in this world. Ryder's mind raced as the wind tore past him. He wasn't chasing a stranger. He was chasing a plea for help. He followed the highway for miles until he spotted the same silver sedan parked behind an old rest stop diner. The hood was up, and the woman was sitting inside with her head on the steering wheel. The boy beside her looked half asleep, his small frame weak. Ryder pulled in behind them and approached quietly, not wanting to startle her. When she lifted her head and saw him, fear flashed in her eyes, until she recognized the note in his hand. Her lips trembled, and she whispered, You read it." He nodded slowly. "Ma'am, you didn't have to do that," he said softly. "You could have just asked." She looked away, ashamed. "I've asked before," she whispered, her voice breaking. No one listened. She told him her story in fragments. Her name was Emily. She'd lost her husband 2 years ago in an accident that also left her with medical debt she could never repay. Since then, she'd been living out of her car with her son, taking small jobs that barely covered gas and food. She had been driving from town to town, hoping to find a place to start over. But the car had broken down, and she didn't even have enough money to fix it. The note, she said, was her last act of desperation, a message to the universe, a prayer in paper form. Ryder felt something burn in his chest. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. He'd once been lost too, wandering aimlessly after losing his own family years ago. He saw the same despair he'd felt in Emily's eyes. He took a deep breath and made a decision that surprised even him. "Wait here," he said firmly. Then he made a call to his club. Within half an hour, The roar engines filled the air. One by one, the ironbound wolves arrived, a dozen bikers rolling into the empty lot, their leather vests gleaming under the sun. To strangers, they looked intimidating, but to Ryder, they were brothers. Men who knew what it meant to hit rock bottom and fight their way back. When they saw the woman and her child, they didn't ask questions. They just got to work. One of them, a mechanic, fixed her car on the spot. Another filled her gas tank. Two others went into the diner and came back with food for the mother and her son. Emily cried quietly, unable to believe what was happening. Ryder knelt beside the boy, handed him a small toy motorcycle one of the bikers carried for his nephew, and smiled. "You like bikes, little man?" he asked. The boy nodded shyly, clutching the toy like it was made of gold. When Emily tried to thank them, Ryder just shook his head. "You already did," he said. "That note, it reminded me why we started this club in the first place." But the story didn't end there. As the day went on, Ryder couldn't shake the thought of how close Emily had been to giving up. So he made a call to a friend who ran a shelter and arranged a small apartment for her to stay in for a month, fully paid. The club also raised money among themselves, enough to cover food, repairs, and basic expenses. They made sure she had what she needed to get back on her feet. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, Emily stood outside her newly rented room, watching her son eat a real meal for the first time in days. Tears streamed down her face. Ryder walked over quietly. "You didn't have to do all this," she said softly. He looked at her and smiled, a mixture of pain and peace in his eyes. "I didn't do it for you," he said. "I did it because someone once saved me the same way. You reminded me of that man's note, the one that pulled me back from the edge." Emily looked at him, puzzled. Ryder continued, "I was a mess once. Angry at the world, drinking myself into oblivion after my family died in a car crash. One night, I found a note in my jacket from a stranger who'd seen me at a bar. It said, 'The world still needs you, even if you don't see it yet.' That note saved me. Yours reminded me of that maybe we all need saving sometimes, in our own ways." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The sky turned orange and pink as motorcycles lined up in the distance, the brothers waiting for their leader. Ryder finally turned to leave, but Emily called out, "Wait." She ran to him and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You don't owe me thanks. Just promise me you'll keep fighting for him." He nodded toward the boy inside. Weeks passed, and Emily began rebuilding her life. The club stayed in touch, checking on her every few days. They even helped her find a small job at a local diner, where she quickly became known for her kindness and smile. Little Ben would wave every time the bikers rode by, cheering as their engines roared through the street. One afternoon, Ryder returned to the same gas station where it had all started. He took out the original note, now folded and worn from being kept in his vest pocket. He read it again and smiled faintly. Life had a strange way of crossing paths. Sometimes the people who looked broken were the ones who reminded others of their purpose. He refolded the note and placed it back in his pocket, whispering to himself, "Never ignore a cry for help, no matter how small it looks." He revved his bike and took off down the open road, the wind carrying away the past. But the memory of that moment, the trembling hand, the desperate note, and the promise he made stayed with him forever. Before we close this story, if it touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Every story we tell is meant to remind you that compassion can still change lives. And before you go, drop a comment below. Would you have stopped to read that note? Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness can rewrite someone's entire story.